I'd like to call the Butte-Silver Bowl Council Commissioners special meeting for Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 to order. Clerk, can we please have roll call?
11 present. One or
I think we have 10.
10
present.
present.
Okay, 2 absent. Or, yeah. 1 presiding. Yeah, I don't know how that works. We'll go with it. All right. Next, we'll move on to the prayer and the pledge. Commissioner Sorich, would you lead us, please?
Mr. Chief Executive, fellow commissioners, Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which will greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver Bowl. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen. Amen.
Next, we'll move on to any public comment on any item on the agenda tonight. I don't see anybody in the audience, so we will move on for our call for special meeting. J.P. Gallagher, Chief Executive, is calling for a special meeting of the Butte-Silver Bowl Council of Commissioners for Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. in the Council Chambers, Room 312. The purpose of the meeting is authorize Linda Sager-Joyce, Clerk and Recorder, Butte-Silver Bowl Council of Commissioners, and the Canvass Board to canvass and certify the 2024 primary election that was held on June 4th, 2024. Canvassing by the governing body is required under 14-15-401 and 13-15-405 MCA. So do I, Clerk and Recorder Linda Sager-Joyce. Got it.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Linda Sager-Joyce, Clerk and Recorder and Election Administrator for Butte-Silver Bowl. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to canvass the election results from the June primary 2024 election. This year is a little different. In the 2023 legislature, they authorized a larger portion of precincts and races be audited. So historically, we have audited 3 precincts in the post-election audit, and we've audited 3 races in that as well. So this year we are auditing 4 precincts, and we're auditing 4 to 5 races in each of those precincts. The post-election audit, which is more closely tied to what we're asking our canvassing committee to do, is in the post-election audit, it's a random sampling of precincts and races to look at how the tabulator is tabulating. It very closely looks at what you're also doing. Where you will be looking more at the voting tallies, but the voting tallies are tied to what the precincts see. This past one was a tough one. We counted, recounted again, because we were looking at so many races. We did find an error that appears to be human related more than tabulator related. I talked to the state 4 or 5 times about it because I was getting a little scared about what the numbers we were seeing. But they said, no, you are within the thresholds, and they were happy with where we ended up. Particularly, what we think happened was ballots, because we had 4-party ballots were ending up in what we call the write-in bin. As they go through the tabulator, if it sees write-ins, it goes to a bin that we mark as write-in, which is a middle bin. Right above it is the ballots that the tabulator did not count because they saw something on that ballot that was a problem. So we think what happened is people running the tabulator were grabbing the write-ins and the uncounted ballots that they needed to check again at the same time and running them through. Our policy has always been you take those write-ins that aren't counted that went through, run them through a second time, run them through a third time, because sometimes it's just like a pencil mark or a hesitation mark, a pinpoint on a ballot, and it will read it. So we would always run them through 3 times, and that's what we were seeing. We had 2 people from our tabulation team go back and check the system audit logs, which is a printout on each tabulator. Every time they touch a button, it records what they touched and what the results of touching that was. So they went through those audit logs to see if they could verify that that's what happened, and they think that's what it was as well. So the totals are off a little bit. We did go through to make sure that what those totals were did not affect any race, and we specifically looked at if there was more than 2 people in a race, what happened with that 3rd person, and if that was affecting any totals. We did not find anything. So that's where we ended up. Like I said, but the state said it was good. So what you have in front of you are, the first sheet says absentee statistics. What that sheet shows you is in our ElectMT database. It shows you how many ballots we issued. The column that is of importance there is accepted. Those were ballots that came back to us voted, and we accepted them based on, did the signature match what we had on file? And then closer to the election, we separated the secrecy envelope from the signature envelope and made sure that the ballots were in a secrecy envelope. And if they put too many ballots in that secrecy envelope, we still let them go on to the next step in our election, which would have been for the early prep board to open that secrecy envelope, look in the envelope, and see if the ballot had blank ballots along with 1 voted ballot. If it had 1 voted ballot and 3 party ballots that were blank, we accepted the voted ballot, and the other 3 were put in a pile. So that early prep step is not reflected in the accepted ballots here. So you can't really look at the accepted number, add that to the next sheet, which is what happened at the polling place, which again, very interesting. The statistics of what happened in early prep aren't reflected in anything here because on election night, all bets are off, and it's about getting things to the tabulator and not trying to keep more statistics in the early prep stage. We leave it for the tabulating staff to log in. How many ballots from what precinct are you counting and what time is it? So that is another checkpoint for us on what's going into the tabulator. And that actually helped us, that log helped us figure out what may have happened with those ballots that were counted twice. So your next sheet is the polling place statistics. This is the point where I would be passing out poll books to you, but what we did was that column that says issued, those are the numbers for the poll books. If you want to look at the poll books, I have them. But we verified this number against what we saw in the poll books and their end-of-night reporting that they do at the precinct tables, and that's what was issued. And the next column is cast. Those are the ballots that were counted. The next column is difference. This is important, especially in a primary. What happens here is people not really understanding what they're supposed to do, and they may take those blank ballots and put them in the ballot box. We cannot open a ballot box with voted ballots in it. We cannot do it. So those ballots are in there. So that's why we also have the column blank ballots cast, because most of the time those accidental unvoted ballots, that's what that is. So we just that kind of helps give some perspective into why the cast ballots are more than the issued ballots. There were 21 ballots like that in there. In some of those places, you'll also see that in the difference, they may have put their voted ballot in the unvoted ballot box. Again, there's nothing we can do about that. So it becomes what it is. So primary statistics are always a little off. And with those added races, it just made it even worse for us to try to count those. Especially the green ballots and libertarian ballots, there were so many write-in spaces on there that it was very difficult. And also one of the laws in 2023 was that in order for a write-in ballot to count, they had to be a filed candidate for that party. So for instance, if on a Democratic ballot, somebody filled in that write-in circle and they wrote Joe Biden, that vote does not count. Or if they did it on a libertarian ballot. And that's also something that is always really difficult in the post-election audit that was done, for somebody to say, oh, the vote's for Biden. Well, it's not, it's a write-in vote. And that's how it needed to be counted.
I've got a question for you. You said it doesn't get counted. I believe in the past, we were told that the whole ballot is for, right? Did something like that happen? Or is it just that race?
Commissioner Callahan, actually, it is just that race. Yeah, we've made changes on how they program ballots with our company, and we verify that. That's one of the new things we did with elections, because we always have, we have had ES&S representatives help us at our election. They're on site, and so we go through a pre-meeting, and that's one of the questions we ask now is, how will this be counted? So we're all on board with that's what we should do.
Oh, Commissioner Cowan.
If there's a ballot and somebody writes a name in that there isn't a spot for them, does it just void that one thing, or does it void the whole?
Do you mean they put a name that isn't a filed candidate? Because it's counted as a write-in, but doesn't count as a vote because, yeah, it's just an empty statistic. It was a write-in. So, yeah, and so we saw a lot of that, especially with the Green and Libertarian Party. They voted for candidates that were on the other ballot, but they don't count. So, if we don't want to look at the poll books, we can move on to what you see. The third one is the 56-page handout, which is our election results. And it is really just looking at your total votes cast. There was one odd statistic. I want to say it was in precinct 6-2, where we ended up with 105% voter turnout. There were 3 people who voted late registration, and I believe there were ballots, let's see what 6-2 did. I'm looking at the polling place statistics. They had 0 blank ballots. So that, to me, was very odd. So we're pretty sure, again, what happened, they were putting in, they voted all their ballots and they put them in the ballot box. Because I'm pretty sure they did not have 100% turnout even. It's just odd to have that. So that was another discrepancy we saw. There is one race in precinct 12.4. It's a local race. It is committee man race on the Republican ballot. The vote is within 2. Even though it is a committee person race, if we accept tonight's results, the unsuccessful candidate can petition for a recount, and we would recount it on our dime because it is within the percentage of error. It's, I think, 48 ballots, might be less than that. So we would recount that if the unsuccessful candidate asks us to. Any other questions? So then you can vote to accept this or to recount this. Those are the options.
We have a motion and a second to accept the primary results of the 2024 election. Is there anything on the question? Seeing none, would commissioners and elected officials please vote? Do we vote as well? We don't have a button. Oh yeah, let's just do it by, all those in favor, signal by raising your hand. It's unanimous. All opposed? There's none, so it's a 12-0 vote, accepting it.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
do have one other request.
Okay.
2023 legislature also made it optional for the local government to add a local race to an election for audit. We will do it also the same methodology used by the state, which is a random roll of the dice. But if you want to have that happen on the general election, we can add a race. No. I can submit a communication and we can ask for that.
Okay. All right. So it would be just asking for a random audit of the general election. Is that it?
Yes.
And then we may or may not be audited if you choose to do that.
Well, we would include it with the state audit because we do the audit at every federal election. So we can add that. If we want to do a random sampling hand count audit, we can do that for a local race. The state will not do it. They leave it up as a local option.
I see. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. The vote for the study commission passed overwhelmingly. I was wondering what the next steps, being as we are talking about voting and moving on in the future, what would the next steps be for that?
Commissioner Anderson. Clerk and Recorder, Sager Joyce.
Commissioner Gallagher, Commissioner Anderson, what happens next is the filing period for anyone wanting to be on the study commission will open in July. And they would file as any candidate would file for a local government office. And then we will place that race for members on the on the general ballot in November. And they will be sworn in as any other elected official would be in December. And they would begin their term in January. And this body has one more task related to the study commission, I believe, which will be appointing the ex officio member.
A follow-up
Commissioner
on
Sorge,
that.
sorry,
Thank you,
he
Mr.
put his
Chair.
hands up, and then we'll come back to you.
Mr. Chief Executive, this random audit, was that going to be a lot of work for your office, or is that going to be this one that you're asking for?
Commissioner Sorge.
I'm
and
sorry,
Clerk and Recorder
Is this,
Joyce.
thank you,
Go
Mr. Chief Executive. Is this random audit that you're talking about, or hand count, is that going to be quite a bit more work for your office?
it will depend on what precinct is chosen by the state and what the roll of the dice gives us for the race.
Follow-up, Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. Follow up on my earlier question. Did we set or how many people will be on the study commission?
Commissioner Anderson, Clerk and Recorder Joyce.
Commissioner Anderson, yes, we did. We have 9 people.
9, okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Commissioner Shea.
Question, but
Just a comment.
I just want to thank Linda and her staff. I got my start in working as an election worker, which just fueled my desire to continue in public service. So what you guys do, I've seen it, I've seen behind the curtain, it's efficient, it's accurate. Everybody there has the utmost integrity, and the community should be very comfortable with the way our elections are conducted. And you've been doing this for how many, like 900 years? So-
Almost close to 1,000.
Almost close to 1,000, see? And I just want to say how much I appreciate you and everybody that volunteers and everybody in your office. So please pass that along on behalf of the council.
I will thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing no other questions, I'd take a motion to adjourn. All in favor, signal by aye.
I
Opposed? We are adjourned. And